Champions Cup, Saturday games this weekend. I have to get a move on because I'm half-time in the Friday games. Munster and Castor playing, and also Queensland and Cardiff are having good games. So, yeah, we'll power through these 6 games and you guys can let me know your thoughts on how things are going to go. You'll notice it's a pretty messy board in terms of there's a bunch of draws. All those games were declared 0-0 with all the travel restrictions last week. There's a couple of teams who've got wins on here which didn't actually get played. Racing have got 1 win over Ospreys last week, which was not last week, last round, which didn't end up getting played. Likewise, Bristol are a win and a draw. They haven't even played a game. It's messy, but yeah, we'll get going. Wasps and Toulouse. Wasps haven't recorded a win yet. They're way down the bottom. Toulouse, on the other hand, have had a bit of disruption. Even their top 14 game last week was cancelled, but they've still picked a pretty strong team. You've got Bai, Malvaka, and Aldegheri, so that's a pretty, in terms of international players, that's a pretty classy front row. You've got one of the Arnolds playing this week, but it's Richie rather than Rory in the second row. You've got Gelant there, number 8. Yeah, it's Intermac. There's no Dupont, but Intermac's still there at captain at 10. For Wasps, they've had to shift Umanga to 15. He's back in the side. I'm pretty pleased to see Odogu there at 13. I haven't seen him play since he got that England call up and then got injured. It's been an age since I've seen that guy in action. And remember, these guys knocked off Leicester Tigers last week, who were undefeated in the Premiership season up until that point. So, Toulouse, in terms of the overall competition, are one of the favourites. So it's going to be a tough job for Wasps. You look at that Toulouse team, and as I mentioned, it's pretty stock full of talent. But yeah, Wasps weren't really given much of a chance last week either and still managed to get the job done. So, yeah, Toulouse go into this one as favourites. 6 points with the bookies and 4 points with the Rugby Forecast algorithm. But, yeah, I'm hoping that one will be a good game. Although it's on at a pretty horrendous time for me here in New Zealand, so I probably won't be watching that one. Maybe the highlights. We'll see how things go. The next one, Connacht and Leicester. Both these teams have actually played their 2 games. Leicester beat Connacht the last time they played, although it was a tough affair. It was 29 points to 23 a few weeks ago. In terms of the lineups, Connacht, I don't think they played in the URC in the last round. I don't think they had a game. But Jack Carty, who's at 10, has been in phenomenal form all season. He's probably the form Irish 10, to be fair. You got Finlay Beelum there at tight head, and they certainly look a better side when he's playing. I think he had a bit of time out injured. So, yeah, I'm kind of pleased to see him there as well. Jared Butler's there at number 8. Kieran Marmion is at 9. Bundy Arke's at 12. So, and Sammy Arnold, who I think's off to France at the end of the year, or end of the season. It's a pretty tight looking midfield. So, Leicester will certainly have to be on form. And they've continued their rotation thing with Europe. Like, there's no George Ford this week. Freddie Burns gets a crack. I mean, he played last week in the Premiership, but only from the bench. I don't even think he got off the bench. Wigglesworth's come into the side at 9. Visa's back after his suspension. He's at number 8. Hegarty's at fullback because Stewart's moved to the wing. So, yeah, with the changes for Leicester and Connacht naming a pretty strong lineup, that could be an interesting one. And the bookies and the algorithm actually seem to think so as well. The bookies have got Connacht at home by 2. Remember, I've seen a fair few teams go to Galway with a bunch of big name stars. I think Aaron Cruden I've seen go there and they got knocked off when he was playing in France. So yeah, it's a tough place to go. So the bookies have got Connacht as favourites, but the algorithm on the other hand has got Tigers, but only by 1. So predicted to be pretty tight. The next one, Ospreys and Racing. Remember I mentioned this is one of those games that was an attributed win to Racing. That gives them their 2 wins, but they have won 1 game on the pitch as well. Remember, they went to Northampton and kind of tore them to bits. They looked really good, did Racing. So, yeah, Ospreys likewise kind of made some changes. They were disappointing last week in the URC game, but they've got Reece Webb back, and he seems to be a creative spark for that team. From what I've seen of them in the URC, he's very good when when they're attacking. 5 metres out, if there's a guy who's going to create something from it, it's probably going to be Reece Webb. He's captain. Anscombe still at 10. Cuthbert's into the side on the wing. Ethan Roots has come back in as well. Matt Prothero has moved to fullback. So, yeah, Gareth Thomas up from the bench to start at loose head. So, it's still a pretty strong looking Osprey side. I certainly won't be writing them off, but they're a bit frustrating to watch at the moment in that some weeks they're really good and really tight and looking hard to beat, and other weeks they're letting in too many tries. So it's a tough one if you're going to be letting in tries against a side like Racing, who tend to play pretty expensive rugby. I mean, they've got Imhoff on one wing, Teddy Thomas on another wing, Kurtley Beale at fullback, so it's a kind of excitement machine. Team Klemenchek's up from the bench. He's in the midfield. Shuzanu comes into the side. I don't think he played in the top 14 last week. Vakatawa is down to the bench, so maybe that's a bit of good news for the Ospreys guys. But yeah, we'll see how they go. The Racing side is always a fun one to watch, and they go into this one as favourites. The bookies are saying 14 points to Racing, whereas the algorithm's got it a wee bit closer with the Ospreys being at home, saying Racing by 3. The next one, Exeter and Glasgow. Exeter will be looking for a bit of revenge after that game up in the fog, which I saw, if you can describe that game as having seen it. So much of it, kind of lost in the fog. But yeah, that was 22 points to 7. That was a really good win for Glasgow a few weeks ago. And yeah, kind of kept their competition hopes alive. Both teams have won one and lost one. So yeah, like I mentioned, a bit of a chance for revenge for the Chiefs guys. And they've kept their lineup pretty steady from the side that lost narrowly in the Premiership last week. So Flaherty comes in on the wing. Lonsdale's in at the second row. Ben Moon gets a start because remember Hepburn got a red card in that game. So yeah, you still got Hogg, you still got Noel at 15 and 14 respectively. Henry Slade's in the midfield and he's been good all year. Joe Simmons is there, his brother's there at 8. So yeah, it's still a pretty tidy looking Exeter Chiefs side who, as I said, have a real reason to want to go and beat this Glasgow side at home. But Glasgow have been really good in the URC, and I've been quite enjoying their games. They've been a very fun team to watch as well. Dempsey's in at number 8, and he's been kind of having a barnstorming year, beating defenders for fun, very dangerous. He shifts Ferguson to 6. Darge is also there at 7. I mean, that back row of Glasgow has been legit very, very good, very balanced, and like a good mix of, busting tackles and making tackles, getting turnovers. So, yeah, really good looking back row. Tuipulotu and Johnson's the midfield. They've been pretty bloody tidy. Josh Mackay is there at fullback as well. I'm always very excited to see him play. Not Scottish qualified, which is a bugger. Forgot about that. The name seems like he should be, but he's not. Kyle Steyn, Scottish international on the right wing. So yeah, you go to Sandy Park, you just think Exeter's probably going to win this one. But I also thought Glasgow maybe weren't going to get the job done at home, and they won that game the last time these two sides played. So yeah, I won't be writing anybody off for this one for sure. But that being said, Exeter are 10-point favourites with the bookies and 10-point favourites with the algorithm as well. So Exeter, in terms of the overall competition, certainly need a win here. The next one, La Rochelle and Bath. I don't think Bath have been beaten in 2022. Got their first win over Worcester the other day, so finally getting things underway. These sides had their game chalked off last time as a draw with the whole, most of the French teams that were due to play English teams. I don't think any of those games kind of got under the way, so this was one of those. In terms of the predictions, this one's predicted to be the biggest hiding. La Rochelle didn't get a game last week in the top 14. I think that one was called off with COVID stuff, but I mean, you got Doolan at fullback, you got Dylan Lades and Raymond Rule, who are two guys who kind of left South Africa as players who kind of got, I don't want to say laughed at, but certainly weren't considered kind of, elite level guys. They were kind of seen as also Rands, but since I've seen them at La Rochelle have been, proper, taking that step up players. So pleasing to see. Dante, the big unit, is in the midfield. Aldritza at number 8. So Bugaritza, Hooker, Antonio, Priso. There's a bunch of big names in this La Rochelle side, so they'll be looking to pile the pain onto the Bath side, who've made a few changes. I'm pleased to see Cameron Redpath back. He's at number 10. Jonathan Joseph's there in the midfield. McConaughey gets a start at fullback. Schoolman is also there at loosehead. Yules is captain. He's in the second row. So they got a win, Bath, last week in the Premiership, so that's a bit of good news. But they are predicted to go to France and get an absolute hiding from La Rochelle. But some of the people following the top 14 have told me La Rochelle haven't quite been at their normal levels this year. So we'll kind of have to see how this one plays out. But La Rochelle by 32, I think, said the bookies, and 22 said the algorithm. So, yeah, Bath predicted to have a pretty hard time of it. And the last one, Bristol and Stade Francais. Like I said, Bristol haven't even played in this competition. They've been disappointing in the Premiership, but a win and a draw without playing is not a bad record in the Champions Cup. They've kept their side pretty steady from the one that played last week. They've still got Semi Randrada there in midfield alongside Piers O'Connor, who's shifted up from the bench, and those two are a pretty good combo. Sheedy and Randall, that same 19 combo. Sinclair is still there at tight head. Morahan's been pretty bloody tidy at fullback as well. So Johan Lloyd had one of his better games that I've seen from him this season. Jinkin and Jivin, very dangerous player. So yeah, and the fact that they kept it so steady makes me think that they really want to get a win here. I guess maybe it's a competition to focus on if they can get through. With all the cancellations, it's kind of hard to see how things are playing out. But maybe they're going to target this competition. We'll see. Stade Francais have made a fair few changes. I'm going to see Nani Laumape at outside centre, which is something I'm not used to. He pretty much exclusively played 12 when he was down here in New Zealand, but they've put in a whole new front row. De Silva's come in at hooker, Bethune's there at loose head, Koval's come in at 9, so it's a bunch of changes for Stade Francais. It looks like they're playing a 6-2 split because Crema, the big Argentinian, is in the number 23 jersey. But for this one, Bristol, 19 points according to the bookies and 11 points according to the Rugby Forecast algorithm. They are favourites. So, 6 games on. I'll have to kind of pick and choose which ones I'm going to watch. Partly that'll depend on the time of the kickoffs. But, almost 12 minutes. I better go. It was a bit quicker than normal, guys, but other games to get back in front of the TV and sit down to watch. You guys let me know your thoughts. How do you reckon these games are going to go? Any upsets on the cards? Do you think La Rochelle, Bath is going to be the biggest margin? But you guys take care, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.